Welcome back to English Real Practice. We're really excited to get into today's deep dive because, well, I want you to picture this. You walk through the front door, you drop your bag, or, maybe you sit down at a dinner table with a friend you haven't seen in a while.
Right, the classic catch-up scenario.
Yeah, exactly. And inevitably, they ask that classic, almost reflexive question, which is, how was your day? And what do? We almost always choose the absolute conversational dead end. We just say, good, just busy.
Oh, yeah, it is. I mean, it's the verbal equivalent of pulling down a blast shield.
Yeah.
The conversation just hits a brick wall and stops right there.
Right. I always think of it like someone asking to see what you're reading, and you just hold up a closed book, tap the cover, and say, it has words.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it. You give them absolutely nothing to work with.
Nothing. But today, our mission for this deep dive is to, crack the code on how to transform those totally mundane, everyday details of a normal routine into an engaging narrative. We want to actually help you improve your English-speaking journey by making you a better storyteller.
And we have a really fascinating piece of source material to help us pull this apart today. We're looking at a transcript from an English language learning channel that breaks down a daily conversation between two colleagues. Their names are Emily and Paul.
Yeah, and to be completely clear right up front, we are not going to sit here and give you some dry grammar lesson.
No, definitely not.
We aren't going to diagram sentences or anything like that. We're going to extract the underlying mechanics of storytelling. So by analyzing how these two individuals recount their day, everything from their morning alarms going off to the pizza they eat in the evening, we're going to uncover how specific vocabulary and even verb tenses function as this director's toolkit.
Right, to turn a boring update into a compelling story. Because moving from simply reporting information to actually connecting with another human being, that requires architecture.
Yes, architecture.
And that architecture is usually, it's hidden in plain sight during our casual chats.
So true.
Yeah.
So let's look at how Emily and Paul establish the baseline state of their day, because you can't really appreciate how a day changes someone if you don't know how they started it, right?
Exactly. You need the before picture.
Right. And Emily's morning, for instance, is pure, unfiltered chaos. She makes that classic mistake that literally everyone listening to this has made at least once. She sleeps right through her alarm.
Oh, man. The sheer, visceral panic of that moment is universally understood. She wakes up, looks at the clock, and the day has basically already defeated her before her feet even hit the floor.
Oh, I have absolutely been there. Is when you do that weird, half hop out of bed where you're trying to put on pants and brush your teeth at the exact same time.
Yeah, total panic mode. And Emily is taking this lightning fast shower. She's entirely skipping breakfast, grabbing a single banana on her way out the door, and literally drinking her coffee while speed walking to the train station.
It is a fantastic, deeply stressful image.
It really is. But then you have to compare that to the complete opposite approach we get with Paul.
Right, Paul.
Yeah, Paul wakes up at 6:00 a.m. on purpose.
On purpose? Who does that?
Right. He has this incredibly intentional, slow start to his day. He makes a big pot of strong black coffee. He sits down, reads the news for 30 whole minutes, and then goes for a 20-minute run around the park in, perfect weather.
See, I usually hate people like Paul.
Oh, totally.
People who tell you about their flawless morning routine can sound so smug sometimes. But he saves himself from being insufferable here by admitting this slight moment of vulnerability. He was actually supposed to go to the gym, but he skipped it for the run.
Yes. And that little detail is the friction that makes him human. A flawless character is just boring.
Exactly.
But what is truly fascinating here is the psychological mechanism of building rapport through these initial states. By sharing highly relatable vulnerabilities, like Emily oversleeping.
Which we all do.
Right. Or these highly specific sensory habits, like Paul's strong black coffee. They're inviting the listener into their emotional baseline.
Yeah, so if saying I was busy is like showing someone the closed cover of a book, then Emily detailing the absolute panic of her alarm clock failing is like reading them the explosive first page of a thriller.
I love that analogy. You are feeling the stakes of her morning with her. The foundation of any good story is establishing who the character is before the events of the narrative act upon them,
Yeah.
When she says she grabbed a banana and ran, you're given a front row seat to her stress.
Okay, so we see how establishing a baseline state builds immediate rapport. But the real test of storytelling, in my opinion at least, is how you handle the dead space.
The dead space.
Yeah, the transition between events. And in a daily routine, that dead space is almost always the commute.
Narrative bridge.
Okay, but wait, I have to push back hard on this. I hear what you're saying about setting a scene, but if I am trapped at a dinner party and someone starts detailing their gridlock on the interstate, I am mentally looking for the nearest exit.
Fair enough.
Nobody wants to hear about someone else's traffic. How does grammar or storytelling structure actually fix the fundamental problem that traffic is just inherently boring?
That is a completely fair skepticism. Because if someone just says, traffic was bad, it took me an hour, then yes, it is mind-numbing. It's just a data point.
Right.
But let's look at how Paul and Emily navigate this, starting with the grammatical choices they use to make this commute feel, well, cinematic. They lean heavily on the past continuous tense.
Okay, give me an example of how that saves it, because I'm still skeptical.
All right, so Paul's morning was perfect, but his commute is miserable. He drove, and the traffic was terrible. He was stuck, not moving, for nearly an hour. But notice how he phrases it. He says, I was sitting in my car, and I was listening to music while planning my workday.
Wait, why does I was sitting work better than just saying I sat?
Because the past continuous tense is not just a rule about verb conjugation, It's a psychological tool. It doesn't coldly state a completed fact. It immerses the listener in an action that is currently in progress within the memory.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it functions like an establishing wide shot in a movie.
Okay, so it's less about reporting the traffic and more about dragging the listener into the passenger seat with you.
Exactly. And once you have them in the passenger seat, you've won their empathy. When Paul says, I was sitting in my car, he creates this little mental diorama. He allows you to share the duration of the experience rather than just delivering the outcome.
Right, you feel the waiting.
Yeah, and he's showing you his coping mechanism too, prioritizing tasks in his head while trapped in gridlock.
And we get a mirrored version of this with Emily. Her morning was a disaster, but she gets surprisingly lucky on her commute. She manages to snag a seat on the train, which anyone who takes public transit knows that is a minor merit.
Oh, a huge win.
And she mentions that she was listening to a history podcast about ancient Rome, which actually helped her calm down.
Yeah, and so the commute serves a distinct narrative purpose for both of them. For Paul, it's the trial that tests his 6:00 a.m. Zen state.
Right, the universe testing him.
Exactly. And for Emily, it's the vital cool-down period after her chaotic morning. The past continuous tense paints the background scenery so we understand those emotional shifts.
That makes total sense. You aren't just reading the timeline of their day, you're standing in the scenes with them. But, eventually the commute ends and they arrive at the office, which brings us to the 9-to-5 trenches.
Yes, the actual work part.
Describing actual work without sounding like a corporate robot reading a memo is incredibly difficult.
It really is. Most people fall into the trap of simply reciting their calendar events. I had a meeting, then I answered emails, then I wrote a report.
Which is just another way of holding up that closed book we talked about. But Emily and Paul managed to keep it grounded and human. Paul dives right into a serious 9:30 a.m. team meeting to discuss tight deadlines for a new travel company app. It's very structured.
Yeah, and then Emily arrives late because of her morning, and she's immediately faced with what she calls an email mountain.
I love that phrase.
It's a fantastic visual metaphor. Email mountain instantly communicates that overwhelming, insurmountable feeling of opening a flooded inbox.
Yeah, and she spends her first 2 hours just chipping away at it. And this leads right into their lunch dynamics, which is where the humanity really shines through. Paul is trying to save money and be healthy, so he brings a disciplined homemade chicken salad.
Which he even admits is a bit boring, but, practical.
It's super practical. Meanwhile, Emily is so slammed from being behind all morning that she rushes downstairs to a cafe, grabs a sandwich, and brings it back to her desk. And she calls it an al desco lunch.
Al desco, it's brilliant. It's this subtle play on al fresco, eating outside.
It is hilarious and so relatable. I cannot tell you how many times I've eaten an al desco lunch while desperately trying not to drop crumbs onto my keyboard during a video call. It instantly conveys the slightly sad reality of modern office life.
Yeah, blending that kind of humor with the reality of the office makes the speaker deeply relatable. And as we move into their afternoons, we see some very specific vocabulary doing a lot of heavy lifting, specifically phrasal verbs.
Okay, phrasal verbs.
Yeah. Emily talks about catching up on her emails, and later she says her hard work paid off when a difficult client loved her designs with only minor changes.
The phrasal verbs are fascinating to me. I like to think of them as conversational cheat codes.
How so?
Well, if saying I was busy is the closed book, using phrasal verbs like catching up or paid off is like handing the listener a magnifying glass. It forces them to look at the emotional subtext. Like catching up isn't just about completing tasks, right? It carries the heavy weight of being behind, the stress of the chase, and then the eventual relief of getting back to zero. And paid off isn't just saying the outcome was positive. It implies a history of struggle, self-doubt, and ultimate vindication.
That is a highly perceptive way to look at it. If you strip those phrasal verbs away and use stiff, formal language like, imagine saying, I rectified my email deficit, or my labor yielded a positive result.
Ugh, you sound like a machine.
Exactly. You completely alienate the listener.
It strips all the blood and sweat out of the work.
It does. And structurally, if you look at their afternoons, contrasting a struggle with a victory creates a miniature hero's journey within a single workday.
A hero's journey.
Yeah. Paul is staring at spreadsheets for 3 straight hours for a difficult finance report, noting that his eyes are physically tired. That's his trial. Emily faces the email mountain, then has the climactic call with the client, which results in a triumph. You have the inciting incident, the lowest point, and the resolution.
You literally go on a 3-act adventure at a desk. It's so cool. And that brings us to the psychology of shifting gears. As the workday winds down, the storytelling naturally has to pivot. They're no longer reflecting on the trials of the past. They are anticipating the future, and that requires a complete shift in the language they use.
Yes. This transition point is vital for closing the loop on the narrative. Emily notes that she has already sent her presentation slides to her manager, and she emphasizes that she did this specifically so she doesn't have to worry about it tonight.
Okay, we promise not to do a dry grammar lesson, but we have to talk about the director's tool being used right here. The present perfect tense, I have already sent.
Yeah, we have to. The present perfect is used for an action in an uncompleted time period like today, where the result matters right now. But from a storytelling perspective, it acts as a psychological lock on a door.
It is the grammatical equivalent of turning off the office lights and walking out the building.
Precisely. It creates a definitive boundary. And once that boundary is firmly established in the listener's mind, the characters can move into their evening plans, signaling that the tension of the day is officially over.
And what a massive contrast in how they spend those evenings. Paul says he has to finish his report for just 1 more hour. But after that, he is ordering a well-deserved pizza and settling in to watch a documentary series about deep-sea exploration.
Which is a great detail.
Yeah, he even makes a point to highlight the beautiful photography.
Think about the sensory contrast there, though. Beautiful, expansive, dark, slow-moving underwater photography is the perfect, necessary antidote for eyes that have been straining at microscopic spreadsheet cells all afternoon.
Wow, I didn't even put that together. The documentary is literally the cure for the spreadsheets.
Yep.
And then contrast Paul's quiet night with Emily's. She's going out, she's meeting her sister who just got a new job to celebrate over dinner. They're going to a newly opened Italian restaurant on Main Street called La Vita. Emily uses this great phrase.
Yeah.
She's looking forward to it.
A classic, universally understood expression of anticipation.
Yeah. And they even cast their vision all the way to the weekend. Paul is planning a 2-hour drive to hike Blue Mountain. He wants the amazing views to unwind. Emily is going the exact opposite route. She plans to stay local, completely relax, and maybe go shopping.
You know, looking at the